more follow up from January 6th, which we have been talking about on this show since actually the night of January 6th. And
Yeah.
all along, we have not bought this insurrection narrative. In fact, the first day after watching the footage, we were like, well, that seemed like a little bit of an out of control protest, but not too much more than that.
Right.
Video surfaces of people hitting cops and everything. But by far the most violent at that day was the shooting of Ashli Babbitt. And that's the only thing, seems to me, that gets praise for happening that day. And in fact, the cop has now come forward, the one that murdered Ashli Babbitt, and is being praised. So, we'll explain what's going on here, because it just, when we started this show a year ago, everything was ACAB, right?
Right, yeah, but now it seems that this particular cop is very much being lionized. I don't have a whole lot on this. I kind of just wanted to mention it and maybe direct people to the interview. They can see it themselves. But yes, the Capitol police officer who murdered Ashli Babbitt, one of the rioters on the Capitol in January 6th, he has finally come out and given his first on-record interview with NBC last week. And this guy had been identified in reports several weeks ago as Lieutenant Michael Byrd, and it turns out those reports were correct. That is, he is the guy. Um, and of course, now he's being hailed as this, like, brave, savior who heroically shot an unarmed woman to death during the Capitol riot. And in this interview, he's very unapologetic. He very much like defends what he did that day and says that killing Ashli Babbitt was justified. He said that she was posing a threat to the U.S. House of Representatives. At one point in the interview, he even says that like knowing whether she was unarmed would not have made a difference in his decision making. Like he would have killed her either way, which I found kind of a weird thing to just freely admit like that. But I don't know. Nobody in media, at least in the corporate press, seems to have much of a problem with that. They think that I haven't seen that really remarked upon much. That he would have shot whether or not even if he known she's unarmed. And the whole thing, I think it was with Lester Holt of NBC. It's a very softball interview. However, at one point they do ask this guy to account for the fact that none of the other cops at the Capitol during the riot that day fired their weapons. And he kind of didn't have much of a good answer. He just kind of says, like, I can't account for their decision making. He said it must have been, a terrifying experience for everyone. But like if you watch the footage, because there's actually several different angles of the footage where Ashli Babbitt is shot, you see there are cops standing directly behind her. Like, and they actually come and tend to Ashli Babbitt after she was shot, within seconds. They must have been like 6 feet away from her or something. And those police officers did not seem to perceive any kind of imminent deadly threat from her or from the people who were around her. None of them seemed to have their guns drawn. And not to mention, this Byrd guy fired into this crowd of people that included these other cops. Like, these police officers were right there. And it's amazing that he didn't, accidentally hit one of them or hit somebody else. But that's another thing that doesn't seem to go remarked upon much in media, of just how reckless this was, of firing his weapon into this crowd of people, including toward police officers, who, again, you can see them right there in the footage. They come and attend to Babbitt like within seconds. And so, seemed pretty reckless what he did, but he was not pressed on that very much by the interviewer. He was sort of just asked, why didn't the other police officers shoot their guns? And they kind of just accepted his answer. Now, however, this Byrd guy, it has been decided. Prosecutors, I think they considered possibly charging him, but they have now declined to do that. They say that, he didn't do anything wrong that day and will not get any criminal penalty for killing this woman. I know her family has sued. I think she sued the Capitol Police Department for like $10 million. Not totally sure how far along that lawsuit is, but for sure, this Byrd guy is not going to face any kind of criminal penalty. So that's about all I had on this killer cop. People should go and watch the full interview if they want sort of all the details of what he said. But they'll notice, I think people will notice, the coverage of this was all very congratulatory and back patting, and almost no criticism of the fact that he shot an unarmed person and killed them.
Right. Yeah, and well, I guess the part of this story that I kind of brought up in the very beginning that I think is the most interesting is just how quickly the narrative on police changed after one sits, and
Right.
for the rest of the country, I don't think this was like a 9/11 event. But for the media, it certainly has been. We're bad to like the full on flag waving, worshiping. It almost is very reminiscent of the past couple weeks in the country of 9/11, where you have, you know, the worship of this police officer who killed somebody, and then very similar to the images from like 2004, 2005, especially when a lot of dead U.S. soldiers are dying in Iraq. Just the way we respond to that by like no accountability for our leaders who get us into the war, no question there, just, you know, more rah rah, we need to kill more people. So it's been, you know, really interesting to kind of see how some of this plays up. Will, I guess what anything else on Ashli Babbitt?
No, that was pretty much all I had. I didn't have too much on that segment. I mostly just wanted to kind of highlight the fact that this cop has finally given his first on-record interview, and it is kind of interesting just to see, you know, like how he is portraying the events. He is sort of like painting himself in the light of a victim and all this stuff. And yeah, I just thought I would, you know, highlight that.